Hello, welcome to the Big Scuba Show.
Hi, I'm Hannah Rudd, a marine biologist and author, and diving means to me exploration and escapism.
So here we are, once again.
This is the Big Scuba Podcast, and this is episode 140.
Woo! And here we are, we're in the middle of a field in the Ford Transit. And
E-Transit.
E-Transit,
Yep.
yes. And I'm sure people as they go past think, what are they doing?
What are they up to? What are they doing?
What is that field in the middle of the field? We're not really in the middle of the field. We're actually sitting on some concrete. But all come clear. So welcome and thanks for downloading this episode, which is our 140th.
Can you
Gemma.
believe that? Yeah, and we're nearly 3 years old in the next
Wow.
few weeks. Yes. So,
Pretty good, isn't it?
yeah.
Where's that time gone?
Well, had a lot of fun.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've got another guest for you. You know, we like to bring you a guest. And this week's episode is no different.
No, we have Hannah Rudd. She has just released a book called Britain's Living Seas.
Yeah, and she talks a lot about why we can explore the oceans and why it shouldn't cost the earth.
And just what, especially, the UK has got to offer for
Yeah.
diving.
Yeah, a lot. Why don't people dive in the UK?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Although, if you could, maybe you should get that camera and just pan that around and
Have a
show
look at- see
people
what our
where we
view
are. This is our current view and everything.
It's
So if you're
amazing
listening
light.
to this in June, July, August, you'll probably think, oh, what are we talking about? But we are sitting in the van, and because we've got to do a little bit of drone work, and it is -3, -4 here.
Incredibly
And, everywhere's
pretty.
white.
Yeah, pretty.
Very white, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, and we've had
complete white out.
frost, and it's been like this for a few days. We had we went diving yesterday, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to see what this new e-transit is like. I'm a transit owner. I've been a transit owner for several years. I think I'm on my third transit.
You're a van driver.
Yeah, I've been a white van driver for years. And I'm, transit through and through. And although I did have a Vauxhall once, my van.
Did you?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, but you're a Ford fan as well.
Oh
so,
God, yeah, absolutely. And this transit's been great in the way of driving. Has been brilliant.
Yeah.
So comfortable.
Yeah, you're quite high up. It's very smooth driving. It's automatic. It's got lots of bells and whistles.
Many divers use a transit, and we are trying Transit Connect or transits for, it gets doubled up for their workday mobile in the week,
Yeah.
and then uses their main go-to diving vehicle the weekends.
Yeah, and then other people use their transits and they convert them, don't they, to
Yeah,
stay in
they do.
overnight?
They
So-
do. But anyway, we'll talk about the transit in a bit. Let's talk about what we've been up to. What you've been doing this week.
Well, with work, it's been busy. We've been doing various things with the podcast and talking to people, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've got another trip planned. We're going to go and see Narkt at 90. So you may have heard of Narkt 90.
Yeah. They're really good, big, especially in the commercial diving, military diving.
Do lots of
They
secret stuff.
they're not a stranger to us. They were on our little big chat a while ago, weren't they? When
Yeah.
we started doing them.
They were. We'll put a link to that so you can. So that was John Routley and Brent, wasn't it? we
Yeah,
spoke
John
to?
Routley introduced me to Shearwater. Hello, you Shearwater fans.
Yes,
and
we're both fans.
those in Canada. So thanks for listening. And I bought my Shearwater from John all those years ago.
Yeah. So we're looking. We'll put more out about that, but we're going to visit the factory and have a tour and a chat with John.
Yeah, and John is John and Brent been in the diving community for years, and big motorcycle fans as well.
Yeah.
Love their motorbikes. I don't think they dive quite as much now as what they used to.
No.
They just got really busy with work and things like that, as a lot of us often do. You know. But it's going to be interesting. Your first time up there, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. I'm looking forward to that and sort of seeing what they're all about and understanding it. You know, being
We're going up in the transit, so see how we get on with tomorrow's little adventure.
Yeah, we're planning the route a bit later because obviously you've got to factor in charging and where you're going to charge. So
It was nice hanging the suits up yesterday, and
Yeah.
I put strung some rope up in there and
Yeah.
hang the suits up after diving, getting changed in there.
yeah,
It was
that was
quite
good.
nice.
And that was our first dive of 2023.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was
yeah.
it was cold. We got 6 degrees on our computers, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was a bad experience. It was really good, lovely bright day.
It's getting over the cold the first bit, isn't it?
Yeah,
know.
you felt that more than I did. I felt more
On my
my
head.
hands.
On my head, and I always do. I always feel the cold on
Put
my
less
head.
hair. Less
Oh, have you know? I've got a full head of hair under my sheer water hat. So
Well, if anybody's got any tips on how to keep warm, I put my hood on a good 5-10 minutes before I jumped in the water, and I didn't have any
a
headache.
5 mil hood probably does suffice. I know some people have said that they've wore when they've
Doubles.
gone to really. I think was it Jill Hyneth who told us that she
Yes.
doubled up her
And
hood.
Becky Kagan-Scott said about putting her hood up over her lip and then put a ready so it kept her lips warmer.
Yeah, one of my diving buddies, what he used to do was he had a camper van, and he would pour boiling water into his hood to warm it up, and then he'd obviously wait for it to cool down a little bit and then stick it on his head.
Yeah. Well, if anybody's got any tips, let us know. I personally suffered more when I got out of the water with my hands.
Yeah, my in fact my O3 gloves are starting to get holes in because I've worn them so much. They're starting to wear up along the stitching, and they were on my left hand. I was letting the cold in, but
but where we were, there were people actually swimming, in their cosses, swimming in the cold water.
I think there was somebody swimming in the river at Bungay this morning.
Yeah,
That's what it looked like.
So well done to you cold water swimmers.
Oh, there was a lady, she got out of the Stony yesterday, and she must have been red raw. And no, not for me, I'm afraid. I like being warm.
Warm water.
Yeah, definitely. God, yeah, but diving, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
visibility's great.
Yeah, it was clear, wasn't it? And it was we didn't see any fish or crayfish. It was quite but the water
It's a good
was clear.
time. A lot of people historically used to, not dive winter time in the UK because of the cold. But honestly, some of the visibility, if you can get over that little bit of a surprise at the start, it's great diving to be done.
Yeah, that's probably
the lakes are quiet.
Yeah, it's probably the clearest I've seen the Nautilus ever.
Yeah, certainly, and I think it's good viz all over it at the minute.
Yeah, so and it was, we saw a few familiar faces, so that was quite nice, and a couple of people looked at the van. So that's what.
It was quiet there. Yes, I put the drone up to get a little bit of an overhead view from outside the site, and just get a little bit of an overhead view of the lake. It looks really nice from the distance.
Yeah.
It's
So,
a perspective I've not seen before.
so that was our adventure yesterday.
Yeah, we only got one dive because it did take us a little while to get here, didn't it?
That's
good.
Yeah, the transit. We'll talk about it, and it does obviously need charging to work.
Yeah, so it took a little bit longer to get here, but there we go. Right, should we get our guest on?
Yeah. So this is Hannah Rudd. She's a local girl to us. She's based in East Anglia. And she's very enthusiastic about her diving.
Been on TV recently with her book.
Yeah, and she's not a diver with hundreds and hundreds of dives. She's
She's quite a young diver, isn't
yeah,
she? Only started diving in 2017.
Yeah, and got 50 or 60 dives.
Done a bit though. She's done some night dives.
Drift dives.
Dived in Maldives, and also. Hello, someone did put their phone on.
My alarm off.
And she's done, like I say, done some night dives as well, and working with the Angling Trust, the Shark Hub.
Shark Hub UK.
Yeah, UK.
Yeah, she's a big fan of sharks, and we also had a really interesting chat about orcas, didn't we? As well.
We did, yeah.
So have a listen and enjoy.
How they've kind of been misunderstood.
Yeah, very clever.
They're actually quite devious in their little way.
They are.
And when we always thought they're actually cute and they're right and they're cool and all that, and that's they are. But actually, they got another little side to them.
They've got a certain bit in their brain that we don't have.
And they do have a tasting for great whites as well. It seems.
Yeah. But yeah, enjoy the episode.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Give us a look. We'll be sharing before we just get Hannah on. We'll be sharing about the transit a bit more. We have got Ford coming on next week, haven't we?
Yeah, we've got a podcast with Ford to talk about their their initiatives they've got on at the moment and their plans for the future. So that will be really exciting.
Yeah, and about all this, it's going to totally surprise you because they do so much in the way of like recycling and things like that, and they don't really make it particularly public. So we're going to hopefully make it public because it's stuff that they should be sharing about. It's all really good stuff. And if you are thinking about buying another dive vehicle this year, a new car and things like that, well, all these are considerations, aren't they?
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're all here to look after the planet, the earth and the water. So sustainability is key. Yeah,
and this transit's been a start of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Start of everything going electric. Everything's got to go electric by 2030.
Yeah. But have a listen to the podcast and enjoy Hannah's conversation with us. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, and keep it safe wherever you're diving.
Hello, Hannah Rudd. Welcome to the Big Scuba podcast.
Hi, Gemma. Hi, Ian. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Thank you. Good to see you on here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great. So we always start our conversation off by just saying, how did you get into scuba? How did your journey start?
Yeah. Well, I actually haven't been scuba diving that long, really. I first took my first breath underwater back in 2017. So, God, it doesn't feel like it's been, it feels like it was yesterday. And that was on holiday in Cape Verde. So very, very lucky to learn how to scuba dive there. Beautiful place. Was just starting to kind of build momentum as a tourism place back then. So I haven't been back since, don't know what it's like now, but it was absolutely beautiful then. So I did my PADI open water there, all the swimming pool sessions, had an amazing instructor, and was a little bit nervous, I won't lie, getting the buoyancy right. It took me a little while to figure that out. And then from there, I've done my advanced in the Maldives when I was based out there. So again, not a bad place to do it. And then I kind of had a 4 or 5 year gap before doing my rescue diver last year. And I did that in Stony Cove. So very different. Okay. That was a bit of a kind of a COVID legacy thing. So that was really good to get on with.
Yeah.
And who was that with?
I did that with Ipswich Scuba.
Oh yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, so Gemma.
Bit of a shock to the system doing that in Stony.
Yeah, but I did it in that weekend when we had all the really hot weather in August, if you remember. So everyone was in dry suits and I was the mad one in a wetsuit because I wasn't that cold, and everyone was looking at me like I was a bit of a weirdo, but I thought it was so warm. And when we were doing the drills on the surface, I just took the top part of my wetsuit off. I was just in my swimsuit having a great time.
I'm the same. I much prefer getting in a wetsuit, especially summertime, unless you're going deep, but on a rescue course, you're not going to be going particularly deep. So, why not?
Yeah, and it's quite physical. So, you don't want to get overheated.
Yeah, no, I find dry suits really difficult to wear, actually. I did some diving in Portland. And they all convinced me to wear one, and it's just like cling film wrap, isn't it? I'd much rather be in a wetsuit and
Chisel Beach.
Cold. Yeah, sorry.
Chisel Beach.
No, unfortunately not. It was just around Portland Bill area.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just inside the harbour. It wasn't the visibility was rubbish. Right. But we did have a couple of seals join us, so that was nice.
Yeah. So how many dives have you logged up so far?
I've done 57, I think.
Yeah,
so I'm still a little, I'm still very early on in my diving, and a lot of that was kind of stopped by COVID. Unfortunately, we had those 2 years where nothing happened, and part of the kind of the book writing process was that I had plans to go out and explore our coastline and dive Farne Islands, Lundy, Scapa Flow, really get a feel for everything. But that completely stopped me in my tracks, and I had to kind of research the YouTube videos and Google. So I have a long kind of wish list that I need to get cracking with.
Yeah. Well, the UK, I've only dived in the UK, so it's got such a diverse, diving arena, really. It's
You two are on par then, aren't you? Because how many dives have you now done, Gemma?
Just 60 odd. Yeah.
So you're about the same.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It was all getting the practice in. That's the main thing.
Yeah. I think I've been very, very lucky that with work, the diving has been something that it's like something I can do on the side, if that makes sense. I haven't really had a chance to focus on my diving skills and getting buoyancy and that type of thing quite where I want it. So it's nice to actually be over here and be able to focus on that stuff and not get distracted by what's going on around me so much, So that's really good.
Yeah. So in terms of your career, what do you do as a job that obviously allows you to sort of get into the underwater world?
So I did my master's in marine environmental management straight from my kind of my first degree. Went straight to my master's, didn't really want to be an adult yet, so decided that I'd spend another year at university. And I was really lucky that as part of that degree, the university had really good links with various conservation projects around the world, and one of them was in the Maldives. So I spent a month out there with the Maldives Whale Shark Research Programme, had some really good field experience, learned the damaging implications of over-tourism, and saw some really horrendous injuries on whale sharks and manta rays. But it was a fantastic kind of deep dive into that. And then following that, I had a year or so out in South Africa with great whites. So I've definitely been quite spoiled. And that was before these two orcas that have come through. I don't know if you've been following the kind of the science that's going on up there, but two orcas have come through and basically ravaged the white shark population because they've eaten them all and they've all scattered off. So that was I was really lucky to have an insight into that world before that all happened. And then I came back to England kind of with my tail between my legs, just bright eyes and astonished at what I'd seen, and ended up working actually with the Angling Trust, which is where I currently am now. So very different desk-based job at the moment that's primarily looking at policy, but I do also get to go out to sea with a lot of skippers and see sort of the amazing stuff that we have here. And I'm not kidding when I say some of the things that you can see off Penzance rival anything that we can see anywhere else in the world. I had one trip last year where we saw a pod of pilot whales, we saw 4 or 5 minke whales, we saw this huge pod of harbour porpoises. What else do we see? A thresher shark jumped, of all things. Bluefin tuna, Rizzo's dolphins, which apparently the skipper hadn't seen in like a decade. So I mean, it's like Blue Planet out there. It's absolutely spectacular, and yet everyone wants to go to foreign shores to go on holiday and see marine life. But blue sharks, basking sharks, grey seals, all of these incredible things, and that's not even talking about our kelp forests or our cold water corals or anything like that. So we have absolutely spectacular diversity here on our doorsteps, and I like to kind of dip my toes in whenever I can.
Isn't it amazing when people say that they won't dive in the UK? And I think you're missing out so much, because yes, all right, it's cold sometimes, and and it can be murky, what have you, but there's so much to see in the UK, and as you just said, and it's really worth doing. And I always think people miss out quite a lot of diving if they don't dive in the UK. When you saw the seals and you saw the orcas, how did that make you feel? Because being up, being so close to such awesome animals, how did that make you feel?
Absolutely, just buzzing. you can't help but I think the fact that you're in this this environment that seems like nothing's going on, because the ocean has this amazing way of just being absolutely quiet, and it looks like there's nothing happening, and then all of a sudden it just bursts into life, and everywhere you look there seems to be something going on. And it's just an indescribable feeling. And I think, having been blessed to travel to various other places that people do go for these experiences, I just certainly think we're on par with that. So I think people really shouldn't overlook, as you were saying, the diving experiences and the marine tourism we have here.
Yeah. Do you think we've misunderstood the orcas? Because we've always seen them as like, they're either being out in Florida doing tricks and stuff like that, and now we're kind of understanding that there's such an intelligent animal, and that they'll take on big great whites and what have you. Do you think they've been quite misunderstood, or just not understood until recent?
Yeah, I think I mean, certainly Blackfish, unfortunately, has really shed light on the intelligence of killer whales, orcas, and that they actually have a part of their brain that processes emotional intelligence that we don't have. So they the kind of pain they must feel when they're separated from their family members, is off the charts. But certainly, great white sharks have always been seen as kind of the king of the ocean, haven't they? And actually, there's a new kid on the block, so to speak. Certainly down in South Africa, they're causing.
But he's not the new kid. He's always been there.
No, he has always been there. That's very true. Parts of the world like New Zealand, it's been documented before. Killer whales eating white shark livers, and obviously we see the awful scenes with kind of the grey whales and things like that. But we have orcas here in the UK as well, up in Shetland. It's not so much of a pleasant story with those guys, because they've got a lot of chemical pollution that's kind of bioaccumulated in their tissues, and they're really struggling to sustain themselves at the moment. But I think they're fascinating creatures. They really are.
Yeah, it's just amazing how it captures you. And also with the pandemic, it maybe has made people realise just what the UK has to offer, because we had no choice. We were jumping in rivers and, just having to do shore dives. So it's probably done a lot for UK diving, what we've been through with the pandemic. Do you think that's possibly the same?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone wants to get their diving fix, right? And if what you can do is whether it's in a lake or whether it's off the shore, if you can rent a boat or whatever it might be, you're going to jump in and have a look and see what's happening. And there's no reason why what we've got here isn't just as beautiful as elsewhere. And hopefully, I really think that we have a good cause for kind of building diving tourism and marine tourism in general, whether it's whale watching or shark diving increasingly. There's so many things that we can do here, and hopefully we see more of it.
And even with the seals, the interaction you get with them, Lindy came into the forefront over the lockdowns, and it's amazing seeing people snorkeling. It doesn't have to be diving. It gets people in the water to see that marine life. And sometimes as well, you see those creatures in some of the most unlikely places. So during lockdown, I went to Pembrokeshire, and I was meant to be with Celtic Deep actually on one of the blue shark snorkel trips, but it was kind of blown off the water. So we went snorkeling in this little bay, and out of nowhere this grey seal appeared. And it was just absolutely, it was the first time I'd seen one at that point in time that close, and I just couldn't believe how big it was. It was huge. And it was just the thrill of seeing that in its natural environment. We hadn't asked it to be there, we hadn't given it a kind of a reason to be around us. It was just spending its time with us, and I think those moments are absolutely priceless. And the more we can build that, and that respect as well, to not disturb marine life and just let it be around you. I think the kind of the bigger argument that we put forward for protecting these species, unfortunately, we live in a world where money talks, and if the marine tourism sector grows and grows and grows, it gives more reason for us to want to protect these areas. And everything needs protecting, no matter where you are in the world. But particularly when we're close to home, it's important that we take care of what we've got.
Had you always wanted to dive?
Hell yeah. I think I think, you know, how can you not watch underwater documentaries as a kid? Because that was, I don't know about you guys, but that was one of my main insights into what was going on. And you watch Jacques Cousteau or, you know, David Attenborough, and you think that's exactly what I want to do. I want to enter a fish's world and just sit there and watch it go about its business and just have this whole new appreciation for these animals, because, you know, marine like megafauna like seals and dolphins, you know, they're great, but fish really are so underappreciated as well, I think. There's a book called What a Fish Knows by Jonathan Balcombe, and I don't know if you guys have read it, but it's such an amazing book.
I have to look that one up.
It completely changed, you know, and I've always been a fish lover, but it completely changed my perspective on fish, you know, whether it's things like how they're kind of the families and communities work, to cultures, you know, these whole underwater cities that are just alive, really. Just absolutely amazing. And diving gives you all of that, you know, unless you can actually see that yourself with your own eyes, it's quite difficult to kind of comprehend it, I think. You know, it's a lot of out of sight, out of mind. So yeah, absolutely, always wanted to dive.
What about family? Do they dive in your family?
No, so I am the only diver in my family. And unfortunately, you know, my dad and my brother love the water, always have done. But my mum unfortunately fell in a river when she was younger, and as a result has never really wanted to go near the water ever since, which is a huge shame. I'm the only one that can breathe underwater, but other than that, everyone else is big ocean lovers.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's really in your blood, and you've obviously taken it. So you said you were an author, so where did that kind of all start? It was quite a
I don't know. that was a bit of a crazy one, to be honest, Gemma.
Just woke up one day, I'm going to write a book.
Yes. Well, it happened a little bit like that. So when I was an undergrad at Lancaster, and we didn't really do much marine science there, and it was me kind of trying to figure out how I could pursue my passion, because I think marine science in general is kind of this misnomer that everyone wants, you know, young kids want to be marine biologists, but no one tells you how to get there. And I never came from that background, so you know, an academic background, or knew anyone in it, so it was still very kind of bizarre to me. So I just started a blog, and this was a blog that it was online, it was on WordPress, it was very basic, and I used to tweet about it, and I'd write about things like shark finning, or, you know, vaquitas dying in South America, overfishing, you know, plastic, all these things. And by a stroke of luck, a commissioning editor at Bloomsbury was following me on Twitter. He read my writing, he liked what I was doing, and he had another book that had been written before by Maya Plass, who's at the MBA now, and she'd done a seashore guide with the RSPB, and Bloomsbury really wanted to kind of take that idea and reinvent it, and Maya wasn't available. So he said, would you like to write it? You can take it in any direction you want. The Wildlife Trusts would like to do it. So I wrote up a pitch and then the rest is kind of history. 2020, fresh out of my master's, I started writing this book. So it was, and here we are today talking about it. So it really was that crazy. And I think that kind of feeds into the idea of, like, in a way, if you want to do something, just put yourself out there. And I know that it can be a really hard grind in other things, but you never know who's watching. And that just seemed to be, for me, really lucky.
So has that kind of paved a bit of a path now for you with being an author? Have you got plans for more writing and more books?
I've always loved writing. I've always done, even before the book, I did freelance bits for magazines and things, and that's really how I started kind of crafting what I was doing. But absolutely, if this book goes down well, I have a few more ideas up my sleeve.
We need to tell our listeners what your name of your book is, so they know what to look for.
Yes, that's very true. That would be handy, wouldn't it? So it's called Britain's Living Seas, Our Coastal Wildlife and How We Can Save It. And it's been written in collaboration with the Wildlife Trusts. It's currently available in all good bookstores through the Bloomsbury website. And yeah, it really kind of sheds light on some of the species that we have here and the habitats we have here, and how intimately kind of tied our lives are. Even if you don't live anywhere near the ocean, we are so dependent on it. But unfortunately, we have used and abused it over the years. And it is, you know, in a state of emergency. However, I really want to push that there is so much good work going on around the country and internationally now, nature-based solutions, citizen science projects. You know, we know how to save the ocean. We just need to do it. And I think everyone can be an everyday marine conservationist, you know, in whatever capacity you have. And that's really what this book is about.
I like the tagline, shouldn't cost the earth. And that's so true. And because we, you know, we do enjoy it, don't we? And it shouldn't be at the cost of the earth. You know, you hear these stories of people not just diving, you know, they go up to Everest and stuff, and then they leave all their rubbish and things like that. And you think, well, you should always leave somewhere better than you found it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And for people, there are obviously lots of people. We're an island, and people don't live like we're on an island. You know, we've got a whole coast, and some people don't even go to the beach or entertain what we have.
No, I totally agree. And I think connection is really the first step. And, you know, I say right in the beginning of the book, most people, when they think of the ocean, they think of some tropical, far-flung beach, you know, in Australia or Indonesia. They don't think of, you know, Dover, for example, or, you know, or Lundy, or, you know, the Norfolk coast, and yet these places are so beautiful, you know, particularly, you know, areas like Northumberland. You know, you wouldn't think of a beach holiday in the north of England, but it's absolutely stunning up there. And I really want to connect, you know, you're never more than, I think it's between 70 and 80 miles from the coast here in the UK. So there's, you know, one trip a year, guys. We can manage that, I think. But, you know, unfortunately, we don't have equal access to kind of blue spaces, the ocean. I think it's really important to say. I think it's something like 20% of ethnic minority groups will use blue spaces. So there is a kind of a disparity between different demographics, and I think it's really up to us to make sure that people with privilege kind of make room at the table and say, look, how can we make you part of this conversation? Because it's going to take all of us from every walk of life to kind of turn the tide on the ocean emergency. You know, it's not my place to say what different groups need, because I'm not from those backgrounds, but certainly I can use my privilege to make space for them. And I think that's really, really important moving forward.
I think some of the hardest thing is to, you know, you've got people who do care, and you've got people who are involved in the watery world, and we're kind of like the easy wins. The people to try and really, who will be the real challenge, are the people who don't care, and trying to turn that around. You know, why does someone drop litter? You know, why? What is that mentality? You know, and through education, I think with especially young people as they come through schools and that, is probably the way forward, is to try and educate people. Hope anyway.
You almost have hope it's going to an infectious, you know, positivity that will encompass all these people. They're not so good people, but, you know, it kind of, the more momentum it gets, the more everybody is drawn into it.
No, absolutely. And you protect what you love, right? Which I think is one of the main reasons why kind of forging a connection with the natural world, in whatever it may be and however you may like to enjoy it, is really important. You know, some people won't want to go diving. It might make them a little bit nervous, or, you know, they might feel claustrophobic, might not be interested in that, but they may want to take a walk along the beach, or they may want to go sea angling, or, you know, they may have some other pastime that connects them with this environment. And I think it's really important that we kind of open up as many channels as possible. But just going back to what you're saying about kind of education and awareness raising, I firmly believe that part of the reason so many young people now are talking about climate change is that it was part of the national curriculum when they were younger. You know, we were taught about it in school, and I remember my teacher saying so clearly, "You're one of the first students to learn about climate change as part of the kind of the curriculum."
How cool is that?
Yeah, you know, like, okay, great. We didn't really identify what that meant at the time, but it's kind of, my psyche is like, how can you not say that there's an emergency, because it's been embedded within me, you know, since such an early age. And same about biodiversity, and why would you want to destroy that, and why would you not want to use it sustainably? And your livelihood depends on there being thriving fisheries. Why would you want to deplete them? All of this type of stuff. So I completely agree. Education and awareness is
and the good news is, you know, a lot of the businesses and industry involved in the diving world and watery world, whether it's fishing or whether it's making dry suits, whatever, and even cars, you know, a lot of industry now is waking up to this, and they're going, hey, we've got to change our ways. We're talking to Ford in a few days' time. And, you know, when we were talking to them before Christmas, they were telling us, oh, well, we recycle our water. We don't have nothing go to landfill.
Yeah, we were blown away, weren't we? It was just,
why didn't you tell people this? And they're like, well, do people want to know? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but again,
yes, they do.
if people are that well informed about all the good stuff these companies are doing, then again, that kind of fills you with, you know, sort of enthusiasm to do some more good.
Yeah.
And every little, you know, helps, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think if we've learned anything in the last sort of 5 years or so, since Blue Planet 2 came out in particular, when you think of the plastic movement, that was the trigger, wasn't it? That all of a sudden everyone is thinking about their plastic usage. And it just shows that there's power in numbers, and that we as individuals and as communities can really make a difference, because at the end of the day, these companies depend on our money to make a profit. So if we've got certain purchasing choices that we want to make, they're going to make allowances for it. You know, I think if we didn't have that kind of that moment as society, we would still be using plastic, you know, the way that we were. You know, certainly there was awareness kind of building, but as you were saying earlier on, it's about the people beyond our initial community that are already looking into these areas. And I'd certainly think documentaries like Blue Planet open up kind of these conversations much wider than people that are just initially interested anyway. So absolutely, we have huge amounts of power to kind of persuade these companies, and we should take full advantage of it.
So here's a question for you. Your book, Britain's Living Seas, okay. What's been the biggest surprise to you whilst writing this book that's kind of gone, do you know what? I didn't know that. Why don't people know this?
That is a good question, because I think I had that moment a fair amount of times.
Did you have like a hallelujah moment? And like, why didn't people know this?
Yeah, I think there were a number of moments, and unfortunately a lot of it was around kind of abuse that we're putting into the sea more than anything. And that was around, you know, for example, chemical pollution, like just the sheer amount of stuff that we flush down the drain every day, and it's just accumulating in fish all the time.
Shoes.
Similar with
how do shoes get through the system?
I know it's absolutely bonkers, but it's the stuff that you don't see that's the problem, right? It's the stuff that's in your bleach or your washing up liquid, or you know, stuff that we just use on a daily basis. Even things like the kind of the contraceptive pill are having huge impacts on fish. You know, the fish are changing gender due to the contraceptive pill.
And milk is really bad as well. Milk is really bad when it gets through the system.
And it just takes, you know, the damage to be done for people then to realize it is bad, and that's, you know, the shocker. But hopefully, you know, books like yours will make people kind of just sit back and think, you know, what are we doing?
No, absolutely. And there are lots of bad things, but there are also lots of good things. And I think,
tell us some good stuff.
Yeah, I'll get there. I won't be a negative Nancy this whole session. So there's lots of nature-based solutions. So there's oyster restoration work happening in the Solent, for example, that is really revitalizing our seabeds again. We've got lots of seagrass meadow restoration projects as well across the country. Similarly, we've got rewilding projects when we're looking at marine protected areas that if they're actually left alone, they do work.
Really? That's good.
So I think it's Lime Bay reefs down in the southwest saw a 400% increase in biodiversity.
Wow.
Once it was left alone. Similarly, up in Arran, which is the first or the second community-led no-take zone in the whole of the UK. It's seen huge improvements in marine biodiversity. I think it's the first cuckoo raid they saw here in the last sort of decade, which is just absolutely amazing. And the benefits that go beyond people like us that dive and enjoy seeing those places. You get this spillover effect as well, that the commercial fisheries that depend on them can really benefit from as well. So this isn't about locking people out of areas and saying you can't make an income and you've been dependent on this area for decades. This is about let us help you. And I think we're seeing lots of that kind of community work happening all over the country. And then on like a much larger scale, we've got ideas like deposit return schemes that have just been put through today. The government, we're going to do that. We're going to ban single-use cutlery. That's one thing I talked about in the book, and now it's already out of date. Which is great, because that's exactly the type of progress we want to see. And
it is.
Things like filters in your washing machines to take out microfibers, all of this stuff. I really think that if we have ingenuity at the top,
then what happens to it?
What happens to it, I think what they're saying is you take it out and you put it into landfill, which is maybe not the better thing to do, but I would say it's probably better than accumulating in fish tissue and being in the marine environment.
That's the thing. I always think about what happens next when you do a litter pick. What happens next? Because they've always doing when you do a litter pick and then it goes to landfill,
you're just moving it.
All you've done is moved it from one part of the earth to the other.
I totally agree. But then part of me is saying if it's within a contained area in a landfill, at least it's not suffocating a seal, or a seabird's not choking on it, or that type of. So I completely understand, and we really do need to find a better solution. And I think there are bacteria now that they're trialing that actually eat plastic, which is absolutely amazing. That's really cool. And if we can have things like that, wow. But it really is, I think, the lesser of two evils at this moment in time.
Definitely. And we're consuming fish in the sea, so it's like this whole cycle. We don't want to keep putting bad stuff into fish, into us, and it just goes round and round, doesn't it? So really interesting. What's going
to be the next book?
What's going to be the next book? Oh, gosh, I haven't finished. This one only came out on Thursday. I would really like to do a children's book, actually. I would really like to create a series of stories that are about our marine life and the threats that they face here, and how humans can help them. So, create a little series of characters like a cuckoo wrasse and, a
bit of education in there.
And just say, this is what we have here, and let's, look after it.
No, that would be good. And it's great that you've got that enthusiasm as well, and care to kind of take it forward and educate people.
Education is one of the most powerful things in the world, I think. And I would find it, for me, I think the ocean does the job of inspiring people on its own. You just have to let people have a little bit of an insight, and it kind of does its job itself. It gives us so much and yet asks us so little in return. And I haven't found someone yet that doesn't have at least a little bit of intrigue when they see it. So I get the seasickness, I have it myself, but I don't think that's an excuse not to dabble your feet in.
No, and you've got to try something before you can make a judgment on it. And, there's probably lots of people out there saying, no, wouldn't touch diving. But until, you can launch yourself into it gently, doing wild swimming. There's more people that do that now that probably have got more awareness of what is in the water as a wild swimmer.
Another thing that came out of lockdown, wasn't it? People
Yeah.
going wild swimming. In fact, only a couple of days ago in Bungay, they were swimming in the river here. And that was like, what, -2? I was like, you crazy? Mad.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing quite
But they
that.
were. They were all in the river.
But it's the mental health benefits as well,
yeah.
right? Spending time by the sea makes us feel good. You know,
Yeah.
whether you're diving or wild swimming or walking, there's a huge amount of benefit, from listening to the kind of the shoreline to inhaling all of the ions that it creates. There's so much research. We have blue minds. We feel calmer by water, and we all need a little bit of that in our lives.
In fact, I was just then thinking, actually, where we're going tomorrow and where you did your rescue course at Stony Cove, the amount of swimmers there now.
Yeah.
There never used to be, before lockdown, there was never the number of swimmers what there is now. It's low. That's a really popular place for swimmers now.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll see some tomorrow, some brave souls in there.
Crazy.
I don't know how you feel when you get about halfway through that lake and think, oh, I'm a bit cold now, I want to go back. Get the rescue boat over.
Yeah, but you're right, it is about mental health, and if you've got a healthy body, you've got a healthy mind. If you've got a healthy mind, it makes you go and do something really sort of active. And so there's a lot
warm,
when you go
something warm.
warm. I mean, a walk on the beach doesn't have to be filled with wildlife. Wildlife is always lovely to see, but you can get benefits from just being by the coast. Not every business has to be about the amazing things that you see.
no, it's just outdoor space as well. So is there anything that takes you out of your comfort zone to do with the watery world?
Yes, I like being in control. And I think the ocean doesn't let you be in control. And I think that's one of the things that I like about it, because it really challenges me. Every time I'm out there, the conditions will be, different. So one example, I was diving off Madeira a few years ago, and it was my first dive after lockdown. I was a little bit rusty, I won't lie. I wasn't really sure what I was doing. And when I came back out the water, we had one of those boats with the ladders that you have to kind of move your fins over, and I hate them because I had terrible balance, and the ocean just was not playing ball that day, and it took me about 4 or 5 attempts to I kept going back in the water, then back towards the boat, and it's just the resiliency, I think, that the ocean really tests your patience. Even if you want to dive and the currents kind of throwing you everywhere, or you just have to think on your feet all the time. And I think that's just one of the wonderful things about it. It makes you a more resilient human being, and a more kind of at peace as well with yourself, and that you can't control everything all of the time.
Do you like night dives?
No.
Why not?
I've done 2 or 3 night dives.
What, in the UK or abroad?
I've done 1 abroad and 2 over here. And very similar kind of thing, that it makes me quite nervous that I can only see where the kind of the torch is. And I'm absolutely not worried about any marine life or what that might do. It is just more, am I going to hit myself in a rock? Do I not know the topography very well? What's my buoyancy like here? That type of thing. So it's probably because I'm quite inexperienced still, probably as a diver, and that will come with time. But that they're quite challenging for me.
They can be, and that is something that some people either really like, or some people just really don't.
But it's also knowing your limits, with your experience as well. So you've got to feel safe as well as enjoy the experience, I guess.
It's the same with drift diving. I've been on some drift dives that I absolutely love. The thrill of kind of just bombing along down. You can't control anything, off you go. But then sometimes if you don't quite feel right in that moment, then there's nothing worse, is there? Because you just can't center yourself and kind of gather your thoughts. You're just gone, and you just feel like a bit of a 10-minute panic.
Okay, so we like to give our listener a bit of a nugget, a bit of a little something to take away from all this, and doesn't have to be about diving, but it can be, and it'd be great if it is. But what sort of life nugget or life hack do you reckon you could give our listener?
Nugget, life
Maybe
hack.
something from the book that's taught you.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the sentiment that I've just been kind of expressing there, in that trust the process. And I know that sounds really corny, but there are so many things in life where you think, I want to go in this direction and I want it now. You know, I'm working really, really hard. Why am I not getting it? And I've certainly had that throughout the book. And I think a lot of it was COVID and having writing fog, or, you know, being stressed about not being by the ocean or not having that sense of control, and all of these different types of things. And I think just breathing and being in the moment is such an important thing. Otherwise, life just passes you by. You know, gosh, I'm already looking at June in my diary and I'm thinking, what, you know, 2023 is not even started yet. And I'm already looking at the kind of the second half of the year.
I know, it goes so quick.
It's so quick. And I think that's another thing diving teaches you, is just to relax and enjoy your surroundings. And you never know when it's going to end, right? This journey that we're all on in life.
Yeah.
So stop thinking about tomorrow and start enjoying all the moments that you have now, you know.
Yeah, live in the moment. Yeah. And not worry about what other people are doing as well. It's
Exactly. I mean, that might be quite like a bit of a stereotypical, you know, piece of advice, but I think as I've got older, it's certainly rung true, you know, more and more and more. And it's just, I try and remind myself of it anytime I'm trying to panic. It's like, no, this is now, enjoy it, you know. You don't know how long it's going to last. So yeah.
Good. No, very good. So if you could take 3 people into the underwater world, they don't have to be divers, but just people that you want to take to show them, who would you take? They can be past, present.
So number 1 is my mum, because of the fact that she's never really seen anything. And when I think some of the places she's been very lucky to travel to, and she's not stuck her head even off the side of the boat to have a look, and just the whole world that she's missing, I would just love to give her the confidence to see that. The other one is, it might be a bit stereotypical, but it's Jacques Cousteau. I just would love the idea of going on a dive with Jacques Cousteau. Obviously, you know, absolute legend that he is. It would just be incredible. And then the third one might be a bit unlikely, but I've been a fan of Anthony Bourdain for a very long time. I don't know if you know who he is, but he so he is he's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he is a kind of a TV personality that used to do travel documentaries to really far-flung parts of the world, and he really inspired me to kind of live life on the wild side a little bit and see life in other people's shoes. You know, it wasn't about luxury hotels or whatever. It was literally staying with the locals in the middle of nowhere and eating their food and all of those types of things. So I think he would give really interesting insights into life and under the water, and I think it'd be hilarious as well. So I would love the chance to introduce him to my world, because he's introduced me to his through TV. So that's what I'd love to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've not had him as a guest, you know, a person.
I am sure you have it, because I was thinking like, I'm not sure if people know him anymore, because my dad loved his shows when I was younger, so I just watch them anyway. So he might be a bit left field.
No, look him up.
Watch his shows, they're really good.
Okay, final question. So we give you a billboard at the end of this, and you can put anything you like on there. It can be a video, it can be an image, it can be a statement, whatever you like, but it's going to send a message to the world. What are you going to put on it?
Well, I could be really predictable and put something to do with sharks on it, because that's my main passion in life, and I think they have so many threats facing their existence. So I could put a really shocking image of finning, or, you know, something like that with 70% declines, etc. But I won't do that. I think instead it would be really, I think, helpful to put a picture of a really diverse group of people from all walks of life and all parts of the world, with their connection to the ocean and however they wanted to symbolize that in their own unique way, with the slogan that said the sea is in our blood. And I think that it's just really important that people understand that we really depend on this ocean, and we should feel passionate about it, and we should want to protect it, and we should feel connected to it and empowered, and all of these different things. And I just think so much of the conservation narrative is negative, and it doesn't focus on the why, it just focuses on the how we've got in this mess. So yeah, I just really like to get that out there, that we live on this blue planet, this blue dot that actually should be planet ocean, not planet Earth, and we need to remind ourselves of that, I think.
Really good. And it will makes people think, which is, and it's not just a thought, it has so much to it. I think that's the other thing I would probably put in the corner. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a map, and it's the Earth through the eyes of a fish, and it is basically all of the oceans that we've got, so the 5 oceans and 50 seas, whatever, are all connected, and it is just the ocean with kind of the continents as little islands around it. And there's a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, and it says, "How inappropriate to call this planet Earth when it is clearly ocean." And given that 2/3 of our planet is water, I think that's a really important thing as well, because we're all connected by this huge mass of water, and what we do to it affects other people on the other side of the planet. So that's my kind of nugget, I think. Very good.
That's quite a learn. So I was just going to say it's quite a learned thing. I never thought about that before, but actually when you do think about it, it should be planet ocean, because it is actually more ocean than Earth, although technically it is, but do you know what I mean? That's quite a learned thing, that. I like that.
I think the thing is, like, a lot of us, unless you're lucky enough to go on a plane a lot, and most people on the planet, let's be honest, aren't, when you look out a plane window, more often than not, unless you're traversing a continent, obviously you're looking at the high seas, you're looking at the ocean. So that's the time most of us actually get the chance to look at it, because it's out of sight, out of mind for most people on an everyday basis. But plastic and things, that's how it gets around the planet, is going along the ocean gyres. Plastic from Malaysia can end up in bloody the Galapagos Islands, all of these types of things. We're all connected. I think there was an experiment with plastic ducks not too long ago, and someone just chucked a load in the ocean to see where they all turned up, and they went here, there and everywhere. So we are really all connected, and I don't think we should lose sight of that.
No. So if people want to find out more about you, how's the best way that they can sort of find out more about you or connect with you?
So there's a number of ways. Twitter, I'm on at Hannah S. Rudd. On Instagram, I'm at Hannah Explores Wild. I do a lot of travel and marine science stuff. Otherwise, you can hop along to my website, which is hannahrudd.com, and you can find links to the book and everything on there as well.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, and your book's out for general release now. That was yesterday, the 19th. It was out, wasn't it?
Yes, it's out there in the wild. You can do what you like with it, say what you like about it. It's available for purchase, but remember, there is a person at the end of the reviews. So I really hope people enjoy it, and can't wait to hear what people think. Really, I'm just excited. It's so surreal seeing it in people's homes. It's very strange.
Actually seeing it like physically as a book must be amazing, because you've put your heart and soul into it.
Yeah, it's getting, when you get tagged in tweets on Twitter and it's like, look what's arrived, and I'm like, oh god.
And being on TV
so
talking about it.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's all a bit mad, I think, but hopefully very grateful, but mad.
Enjoy it, live in the moment.
Are you going to the Go Diving show?
I'm not, because unfortunately I'm giving a talk elsewhere, but I've been meaning to go to that show for bloody ages, so hopefully I can find time next year.
It's a good show.
And I think this year they're doing a special feature on the British Isles.
Are they?
Well, it'll be good. Well, it'll be good, because it'll hopefully increase people's awareness of what our coastline offers, and the great things that you're doing as well, sort of making it out there and giving people the material to read.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as I said early on in the podcast, I really think I don't see any reason why we can't have a really thriving diving industry here, and not just domestically, but attracting people from all over the world. And one of the things with climate change is obviously our seas are going to warm, and that's a challenge, but it's also going to bring a lot of new species into our seas as well that people are going to be interested in viewing. So yeah, we certainly need to be looking ahead with that one, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you're definitely right about species, because I think a sunfish was washed up in Great Yarmouth a week or so ago, and you think, wow, they just don't exist in our waters, do they?
They get huge.
Yeah, they are huge. Yeah, I've seen a few off Cornwall before, but that's like 30 miles offshore. It's not very close in. But yeah, I mean, an angler caught a lionfish in 2021 off Chesil Beach, which is insane. Whether that was an aquarium release or a wild fish, we won't know. But bloody hell, my watch is now talking to me. Sorry about that. But yeah, even things like bluefin tuna, coming back. It's a hugely exciting time for our marine life.
And it's ever changing. So thank you for coming on the podcast and bringing the enthusiasm's great.
I hope it's not too much. But I really appreciate the coming on today and talking about the sea, and hopefully inspired a few people to look a bit closer to home next time they go diving.
That's great. Thank you very much for coming on.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Well, what can we say? What enthusiasm.
Yes.
Knowledgeable. Obviously done a lot of reading, I would say. Really good. Really enjoyed that, didn't you?
Yes, and it was her obviously masters and her degree, obviously all around ocean marine speciality. So just amazing. She's taken it further and produced a book.
I wouldn't know where to start.
What, a book? Once upon a time.
Once upon a time, I wasn't a diver, and then I become a diver.
And I've seen fish and seals. But her enthusiasm was amazing. And I think even if you were not a diver, you'd think, I've got to maybe have a little bit of a think and get into what we've got on our coastline in the UK.
Yeah, I took away a couple of points on that. Is like, I like the, do they call that a strap line or tagline? Or I'm not sure, but it shouldn't cost the earth. Or it shouldn't cost the ocean. And I thought that was a really good point that she made about the whole, we refer to it as the earth, but actually, big part of it is water, isn't it?
It is 70%.
Underneath the ocean is earth, but actually, the biggest part of what we see is the water, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's all there's so much unknown about the ocean, and she's right. As you look from an aeroplane or even space, look at what they see, and it is all a lot
blue and green, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. So it is a book Hannah's written, but there is so much more that it kind of makes you think about. And I think that's really good, because it is an education. And again, she said about education, and we've had that from other podcast guests, saying education is so important for the future of our planet.
Yeah. Well, that's one of Christina's
it is,
points, isn't it? Is education, conservation.
Yeah. So no, I think
exploration.
Yes. Transformation.
All these things. We learned about transformation from Ted Clark, didn't we?
Yeah.
And Phil Short told us about find the magic in every dive.
Yeah, and I think Hannah can, that comes out in her enthusiasm and her passion for the underwater world. And also, what's really great is she's not a super experienced diver. It just shows that anybody with a passion and an interest, you don't have to be a proficient diver with hundreds and hundreds of dives to kind of appreciate this underwater world.
She's done some good diving though. If you think Maldives,
drift dives,
diving, night dives can be, they can be either really, really good and you're like, wow, that was amazing, or they can be not so good, and that can nearly put people off. And I can think of some really good ones I've done and some not so good ones I've done.
Yeah.
And you think, wow, that was quite hard work, you know.
Mm.
So it's
but you've got to take
I quite like them.
Yeah, you've got to take the positive out of, you know, some of these things, and everybody's different at the end of the day. And not everybody's going to like the same thing that the next person.
No,
really
that's right.
So,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So people need to, people need to check out a book. Links are in the show notes.
Yeah.
And have a look at it. And I think it really will be a good read, and something.
It's on Amazon, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's on Amazon, and obviously you can physically go to a shop and buy it.
And we can actually put that in the Big Scuba library.
It's already in there. Yeah.
So it's all there.
Yeah. Yeah. So check Hannah Rudd out and take a look at her website as well.
Yeah. Do that. What else do we need to tell people? So this will be out Monday.
Yeah.
We're diving tomorrow at good old Stony Cove. So hopefully, you know, we have made it and been to a diving.
We'll see you on the next podcast.
Look out, and hope you looked out for a big grey van.
Yeah, we ought to name it, didn't we?
It's like Big Grey Seal, isn't it? Really?
Sort of like an Eric van. I don't know. Eric the electric e-van, e-transit. Yeah. We'll have to think of something tomorrow.
We will.
We're going to have some time while it's charging.
Anyway, this is the future.
It is the future. Embrace it. Yes.
I know.
Yes. It's all about planning. So
it
is. A bit organised.
Yeah. So we'll be sharing about that. And hopefully by the time this comes out, people will have seen it. Because hey, this is the beauty of downloads. They could be listening to this in June. Yeah,
anywhere in the world.
Exactly. So,
So just a reminder to check out our YouTube channel. We've got a few new videos out. We're doing some drone work, beach cleans. So check out the videos. If you like them, subscribe, and there'll be more coming soon.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's some more coming on that. And also, don't forget to leave a review if you're listening to us on iTunes, because it helps your dive buddy finds us.
Yes, yeah. So, and if you've got any questions for either Ian or myself, drop us a DM or an email, and or any recommendations for future guests. We're always happy to put them on the list.
Yeah, exactly. So that'd be good. And don't forget your tickets for the Go Diving show if you haven't got them already.
Yeah. So that's 4th of March.
It's our only UK diving show. So get those tickets and get there.
Yeah, and after listening to this enthusiastic Hannah Rudd talk about the British Isles, you definitely should be thinking about coming to the UK's only diving show.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be there.
We will. Yeah, we'll be there on Saturday.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Better go and get the dive gear ready.
Yeah, better go and get that ready. Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading this episode. Thanks for sticking with us. And but right now, I think that was the Big Scuba podcast.
Yeah, thanks for listening.